Hi, it's Ray from Pro Shaper in Charlton, Mass. We're back on the 550 fender section here. What we plan to do tonight is, I had mentioned, I think when we were making this, that we're going to put this little plinth in here for the parking light. And what that does is it takes this surface that's all angular and curved this way, and it just lifts it up a little bit so it makes the parking light project more towards the front. So it needs this little base plinth made. Now, we took all this body information off of a fiberglass body that we had. That's how we made this particular wire form. Usually we make them by photos, but this one we did have a fiberglass body, which had a bunch of problems with it. It was asymmetrical. It was supposedly cast off an original 550 body. In fact, it was two 550 bodies. The rear end was done off of one car, and the front was done off a different car. And they were never the fiberglass body was never properly united, so there was a lot of missing information. And missing information is the bane of this whole craft, is trying to solve a problem when you have faulty information or not enough information. So in this case, we used as much as we could of that fiberglass body. We also did a study of a whole bunch of existing cars by observing the photographs very closely. And this little detail is very hard to get from just a photograph that might have been taken at 25 feet or so. So the neat thing is, I know a guy who knows a guy, and he happens to have an original 550 fender that was made by Wendler. It's been replaced, but he still has the original fender, which was beat up on the back section, but on the front section it's fine, it's still there. So we have the information, and again, the more information you have, the better it is. So he took these photographs and texted them to me, and it shows the size of the plinth, the size of the opening, and this is the orientation. He was looking with the camera at this angle here. That's one photo, and this photo here is oriented this way, and so it gives me a good definition of how much that has to raise up. We've got three photos here. I think I have enough information to do what I need to do. So the first step is from the fiberglass body, which had the it didn't have the plinth in the fiberglass body, because that would have been a problem demolding it probably, so they didn't add that in there. But they did have the opening position of where the brake cooling scoop opening was, and they had the opening position of where this parking light was. So Mark, when he made the wire form, he's got wires in the back here, and I've inked them in with magic marker. Now I'm going to take this off, and I'll transfer those ink marks, and I'll show you how I do that. And then what we're going to do is, and this is a great little trick, we're going to use actual clay to model what that plinth is going to look like. So based on our photos, we're going to heat this clay up, because the clay doesn't work at all. It's hot as a rock until you heat it up. I got a little heat gun here. We're going to warm it up. We'll put the clay on there, model that, and the goal is to get it modeled properly so that it visually looks right according to the pictures. And then I'll have Mark later on, we won't show this on camera, but the intent is to make a flexible shape pattern, and we'll index it off of these cut edges here. And we'll eventually use that flexible shape pattern to allow us to make the proper position, the proper shape of that plinth. But before I do all that, I still have to do some little bit of tuning to this panel. It's a little high still here. I got to shrink it down a little bit. It's very subtle, but there's a few things I want to pick up on it, improve the surface quality a little bit more. And then when that happens, then I'll make another flexible shape pattern of this whole piece so that I can flip it on the other side, and I know that I'll have a perfectly symmetrical piece. My original intent, as I stated in the other videos when we were making this, was we did this in an unusual manner. We used heat shrinking to shrink this whole thing, and by doing so, I'd like to show the power of using heat and the wire form to actually shape just like they do over a hammer form. But this was done a little bit different, but the principle is the same. It's not the way I normally do stuff, but it's one of the tools that you have in your bag of tools. So if you ever have a high spot, you can use heat, whether it's steel or aluminum or whatever, and bring that high spot down by using a little heat to bring it down. It's part of the potential that you can use to achieve your goal. And I intended to do this other one in a different manner totally. I would use my shrinking facilitators and everything. Instead, I used my power hammer to pull these all down by shrinking with the thumbnail die. On that side, I'll do it all manually. But then I started thinking about that, and I think that it might be boring for the audience to watch another of the same panel made just the opposite side. So I decided what we'll probably do is, this will probably be next week, we might do the back, and we're going to do the back in the same way. We'll make the back two pieces basically, but we're going to do on video just one side, which will be, you know, that whole section. If Mark wants to bring the camera around, I can show you what we're talking about. Alright, so this is what I'm talking about, and this will be the upcoming video that we do on the Porsche. We'll make this, I've got the magic marker line here, and there's the under panel. We're going to include the whole under panel, and we'll come up about 3 or 4 inches here and cover this whole bump for the tail light here. And it'll include this reverse curve. And this panel is essentially almost the same techniques and the same level of difficulty as the front panel. Very common procedures here. So this will allow us to make this whole back section, which is one of the most difficult sections of the whole body, and we'll be able to make it in the left side and the right side, and then we'll have that whole difficult part done. These panels were all made by my students at different times, different classes, and these are all good, valid panels. These are, I call just teaching panels, because we make them out of 20 gauge steel, and this is going to be aluminum body. And these were all made by different students. This one was welded up, and they proved to be pretty difficult. And if you do all this welding in here like this, it's welding in a reverse curve can be a little tricky. So this way we'll eliminate a lot of that. We'll put the weld up in here, and there won't be as much problem, I don't think, with the weld. And there'll be no welding on these other panels. So that's a very difficult panel for a newbie student to be able to make. But I just want to show in this video when we make this that we can do that whole panel. So that'll be upcoming. But right now we're going to do that plinth on the front. So the first order of business, I've marked it in the back. I unclamp this, and you'll see where I magic mark it in. There's the two positions here. I don't really need to do anything with this. I'm just going to leave it marked like that. And then what I'm going to do here is find the center of this. I'll guess and then use my dividers to find out where the center is. And then I'm going to prick punch it so that I can transfer the mark to the other side. So I'm going to guess here, right about there. That's an eyeball guess. So now I'm going to take my dividers. The dividers are one of the best tools that was ever invented, probably 5,000 years ago or so. I use them a lot in the shop here. Okay, so that's pretty good. That's off a little bit. So let's see. Where do I got to move it to? Well, that might not be round. It's not round, so actually that's pretty good. This side here, this isn't a true circle here, so it's a little distorted. So I'm going to go with my guess, my first guess, and I'm going to take, I got one of these automatic prick punches. I got it set so it's really light, but it should be enough to transfer it through. Let's see if that came through. know, I'm going to have to pump it up a little bit. This is going to be cut out eventually anyway, so. Yeah, there we go. That did it. So we'll find the mark. There it is right there. And then we're going to punch it back the other way. Now remember, we made this panel, it was mostly shrinking making the panel, so that it's 050 aluminum, and we haven't stretched it or thinned it in any way. So it still has at least 47 thousandths thickness or so, should pretty much everywhere, because we did very little stretching on the panel. So there's the center of where our light has to be, and now we can take and I made this little circle before. I'll show you the pictures. Oh, I did show you the pictures already, but that's the opening there. That's a little distorted because it's a close-up view. So this is the actual opening hole of the plinth. I'm going to set the dividers for that amount. So I put a light scratch on there, and then here is another circle I made based on the pictures that I got. I'm going to go out to this measurement here. That's the top edge of the plinth right here. That's a hot edge. And then the plinth itself has got a little bit bigger diameter, or radius here, so we'll set that out a little further. And then we're going to magic marker these lines in, probably with a dotted magic marker. And that'll give us a good clue as to where we got to throw the clay against it. Start shaping that clay. Molding the clay. So there we have it, and now I'm just going to put some dotted lines in where I put the scratches here. Now ideally I'd have the fender here, the original fender, and that'd have really good information, but that wasn't possible. So this is what we're going to do. So there's our location, and refer to our pictures now. That looks actually pretty good. So now I'm going to heat up some clay, put the clay on there, and then mold that plinth. Let me heat the clay up first. Do that a couple ways. I have an old microwave. I throw it in the microwave, put it on a paper plate. I think that's actually more effective, so that's what I'm probably going to do. I'll get a paper plate. You can do it with this too. This does it from the outside. The heat goes from the outside in. The microwave does it from the inside out. So I probably don't need this much clay either. So let me break this in half. That should be enough. So I'm going to microwave this up, and the problem with the microwave is you got to be careful is that it makes it a liquid center, and it's super hot. So if you do microwave, it's like 30 seconds at a time, because I've taken and heated it, and you squish it like that, and you get really hot clay that's 200 or 300 degrees on your fingers. So it's a little scary. So it's best to use rubber gloves. But I'll try it 30 seconds at a time, get it nice and soft. Alright, so we'll give it 30 seconds, see what happens. I think this is a late 1980s or early 90s Amana microwave. I remember buying this. It was $778. Still works. Alright, now you can see that's nice and soft. 30 seconds. I'm gonna bust it in two and give it another 30 seconds. Oh, almost perfect. Look at that. So I can use the heat gun now to fully get it the way I want. This is really soft. That's why you have to be careful. That's got the soft inner center. You can see it's scooping out here. Alright, so this one came out a little bit better. We'll use the first one there. So as you can see, this side here is tapering off, so that's where we got to build it up. Now this great tool of clay can be used in so many ways for panel work. If you want to make a modification, if you're a customizer or a hot rod and you want to see how something looks, you can take and model it in clay oftentimes. You can build some simple structure that will hold the clay and model it all in clay, and then you'll have a really good look of what you want to do in the metal. And after you get it all surfaced in clay, again, all you got to do is make a flexible shape pattern off of it, and you'll have all that information to allow you to make it in metal. So these are little clay shavers. You can make them yourself, or they're available. You can buy them. Search online, you'll be able to find them. They're pretty inexpensive. I'm going to shave this off a little bit. Where's this clay come from? A friend of mine who's a professional full-time bronze sculptor, he clued me in all this stuff, where to get the clay, and I also have wax too that you can model with wax a lot, and I'll have Mark put the source of the clay into the video by the time we're done. This is really good stuff. There's professional automotive modeling clay, and I pursued that years ago, and it's very expensive. This stuff, I bought 2 big bricks of it. I think the first time I bought it was like $125 or $150, and the second time I bought it was almost twice the price with the shipping. But it's worth it. It doesn't go away that fast. It lasts a long, long time. You can use it over and over and over again. So, really good investment. So now the object is to shave this down and make it look like the photograph that I was texted. So Mark doesn't have to show the whole process of working the clay, so he'll probably cut some of this out, and then we'll show the finished product. Now there you go. We got that plinth all shaped up there with the clay where we want it. I looked at it at all the different angles. I tried to make a flat plane here as best I could, and the plinth needs to rise about a ½ an inch according to the pictures that I got, and it's about 4 inches diameter in the face, and that looks pretty good. And then this other base is about 4½ or so. So I got a nice flow going in. There's a nice little radius going up there. So the next step will be to take and make this little partial flexible shape pattern, and that will allow me to make this, to locate it perfectly, and then as I pound it in from the back side, I'll probably anneal that section, and I'll cut the hole out. If I cut the hole out, you cut the hole smaller, and then when you hammer it, it'll expand out a little bit, and you won't have to draw so much material from the surrounding area. So we'll elastic stretch it in with a few little caulking tools. We might show that process when we get to it. But that's it. That's how to make that, model that in pretty nice, and that's the way it'll be when it's all done. And now the light will have a little more deflection towards the front this way. And I was going to have Mark put the name of the company that I get this clay from, and it's really good clay. It works really nice. I was able to use my finger and thumb to get that nice little flowing radius in here. So I hope you like the video. Please subscribe and give us some likes if you think we're worthy of it. And thanks. It's Wray from Pro Shaper Workshop.